Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Justin Wolfe from Wolfe Customs.
And I'm Larry Roberts. Both Justin and myself pride ourselves in bringing only the best outdoor videos,
where we show only the reality of the situation, none of the staged drama.
So if you want to see what the popular TV shows didn't show, then stay with us and we'll show you the skills and knowledge needed.
We'll show our success and our failures. In many cases, these are things that we've never done ourselves, and we're going to be learning right alongside you.
But what we won't show is the made-up drama, only put in for ratings. Hey guys, well, today's video is going to be a situation maybe that you found yourself in and you need to gather some food. I'm down here at the river. I don't have any fishing equipment or anything, but I want to see if I can catch a fish with basically using a knife and one of these survival bracelets. Okay, so maybe you got stuck out in your car or something, and you know, basically you were able to get a fire like how I did in my my battery fire video, and you know, you've got your water, you've got a shelter, and you've got fire, so you're pretty well situated that way. But now you're starting to get hungry. You know, maybe it's been a few days, you know, since you've eaten. And now, pretty soon, you know, food becomes a priority once you have your other necessities taken care of. So, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk along. I'm going to try to get down to the water's edge. There's a, you know, my local fishing spot down here that I go to, and I'm going to, on the way down there, I'm going to gather some resources that I might be able to use to hopefully maybe catch a fish. Now, the river's really high. There's only a few times where it's not good fishing where I'm going, and it's basically right in the spring, like right now, but I don't really have any other place that I can go. This is it. So, you know, we'll give it a try. As I was walking down there, I passed some things that possibly could be some... Okay, sorry about that. Once in a while my camera does that shaking business. Anyway, as I was walking down to the water's edge, I passed some things that just some resources that I thought I would gather, and I thought I'd show you what I'm going to gather, or what I've actually already gathered it. But I'll show you the plants that I gathered it from. So let me reset the camera up, and I'll get some close-ups of some of the plants that we have in our area that I think would help me accomplish maybe getting a fish or two. Okay, here's a nice little thorn bush, and I harvested this little piece off of here already. Okay, but see right here in the middle, if I could make that a gorge hook, hopefully that's focusing, there we go. If I can somehow fashion that into a gorge hook, I think that would work pretty good. Now here is another part of that plant, right here. Okay, this bottom part kind of looks like a two hooked, you know, fishing hook to me. So if I get rid of some of this and tie my string up to there, maybe that'll work. This plant we call prickly ash, and you can see it's got a ton of little thorns on it too. Okay. So if I found a dead piece of this, the camera's still not focusing. Sorry about that. If I found a dead piece of this with these thorns on it, maybe I could make a gorge hook out of that too. Sorry about the focus on this. Okay guys, here we've got an oak tree that's fallen down from a storm or whatever. There would be some good strong branches in there that I could fashion just a regular wooden gorge hook. I think I might take one or two of these too. Okay guys, check this out. This to me screams bobber. Okay. Now this one has a hole in it. And so does this one. But I'm still thinking it'll float. Okay. So there's two of them right there. Two little bobbers. Okay, I didn't know the river was going to be quite this high. Normally you walk down another 15 stairs, but right now they're underwater. So my little eddy that I was counting on is gone, but those stairs right there have created a little eddy. So I'm not going to go down there. My experience is that, you know, when I fish these eddies in this river, I don't really sneak up on them like I'm stalking deer, but I don't make a ton of noise either. So usually I try to cast before I get to the eddy, so that sometimes these bass and fish, you know, really do like to hug the edges. So I'm gonna leave that eddy there. I'm not gonna go down there, and I'm gonna work on my fishing kit. Okay, before I get started on making this fishing kit, I just want to say I'm really excited about this new series. This was Justin's idea, but I mean, I'm pretty excited about this. I know I'm going to learn a ton, and it gives me ideas and a way to get out into the woods to practice this stuff. Like I said before in one of my other videos, you know, I think about this stuff a lot. I think about just different techniques and I think about this stuff a lot. It takes up a lot of my time. I'm kind of, like I said before, I'm kind of obsessive compulsive, so once I get an idea or a project in my mind, I worry it like a dog with a bone. And this helps me, you know, channel some of that energy into some productive, something productive. Anyway, I'm just really excited about this. Thanks, Justin, for this idea. Okay guys, so here's our resources, okay? We've got a survival bracelet, a couple of the little pods that we found, okay? I might use these as bobbers, I haven't decided yet. I should have, when I harvested this one, I should have grabbed the branch that it was attached to too, so I had something to tie to. That was kind of stupid on my part. This one, it came with its own little branch there. I was able to harvest it with it. So anyway, and when I said only a knife, well, evidently I lied because I used my saw, but from now on we're just going to use our knife. And obviously this was no problem to harvest with your knife. It's just I had my saw on me and I just whipped it out. So here's our little thorn bushes. Okay, little thorns. Pine cone and 2 rocks. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut where this guy made this. I bought this off eBay or whatever, but anyway, and hopefully this is the 7th strand. Okay, that's the problem with not making them yourself or not getting them from, you know, somebody that you know, is you don't really 100% know this is the 7th strand real deal paracord, but we're going to find out with this. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that little burn thing off there where you keep the paracord from, you know, untying. Okay, I think I'm going to have to cut down a little bit more. Right there. Just going slow. This is a real awkward angle for this knife. I don't want to cut myself. So just need to separate where he glued it again, you know, right there. Alright, so now this one is a really tightly woven one. So I'm going to just take my time. I've got it free here, you can see that. And all I need to do is just start gently working this loose. And I might, so that I don't use my knife and risk cutting the cordage, I might go harvest a little stick so that I can kind of pry it under there and lift it out. And actually, you know, I've got my keys with me, so that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to use my keys and pry this stuff out. So I'm going to start untying it. Okay, and just in case, you know, somebody I guess didn't have keys on them, which I almost can't think of a place I don't go without my keys, but you can just make a little wedge shaped branch. Now hopefully this one's strong enough. If this one starts to break or whatever, you can see where there was another little branch off of it, so that's basically a knot, so that's going to be stronger, so I can just move my wedge back a little bit. But this will just give me something to kind of help pry with. Okay, all I need to do is get a little loop going in there. Okay, and just saves my fingernails and stuff, because the very first time, you know, I basically almost ripped my fingernail off. Okay, so I finally got all the knots out of it. Okay, looks like I injured it right there with my knife. I'm probably going to cut that end off. But both ends are not burned. In other words, if this was just one piece of paracord that you had in your pocket or something and you melted the ends, in order to separate the inner strands, you just cut the burned part off. Set the buckles aside. Okay. I'm just going to keep working this sheath, and I did injure a couple of these cords. But some of them are still viable in the end there. It's only a tiny bit of cordage that I lost there, not a big deal. Okay guys, I got it apart. I've got quite a bit of cordage here. Approximately every one of those knots that you tie in your survival bracelet is about a foot of cordage. So I've got about an 8-inch wrist or so, something like that. Or you know, that's the size that I usually make them. So this cordage is about 8 feet. I only need to tie 2 of these together to make a decent sized fishing line. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tie these together using a blood knot. I believe that's what it's called. Anyway, you just take one, and if it makes sense, you basically do this cordage is so tiny. You basically do a half a granny knot or a half of an overhand knot. Okay. So I tied this one to this one with basically a half of an overhand knot. I'm going to do the same to the other one. Now with bank line and stuff, you don't want to pull this knot very tight because it won't slide very good for you. But with this nylon string, you got to pull it pretty tight because it wants to come loose. And then you pull them together. Okay. Little tail got caught in there. Alright. Pull them together. It's spliced right there. Now some people, myself included, have been known to replace your bootlaces with paracord, and sometimes people kind of make fun of that or whatever, because they say, what the heck are you going to do with a boot that doesn't have a lace on it? Well, if I can tie this dang knot here. Pull it kind of tight. Okay. Well, you still have this, you know. I mean, what's wrong with this for a shoelace? Also, let's just say I undid my bootlaces. Generally, my bootlace, I wear pretty decent sized boots. I mean, I like the high boots. They're not a low profile boot, so it's going to go up my calf a little ways. So I would undo one bootlace, and then that would be my cordage. The other one I'd cut in half, and I'd skip alternate loops or make it work somehow. Okay? Or, like I said, you could use this sheath. All right, let's start working on the gorge parts and the hooks. Okay, so I'm going to make these into hooks. I don't think I'm going to make them into gorges. They are still green, so that means they're pretty flexible. So I want my gorge hook to be pretty rigid, and so that's why I think I might make that out of this piece of oak here. Okay, but I could see this being a good hook. You know, this would be a bigger one. Okay, leave myself plenty of room to work. Well, that was great. Alright. And this one I'm pretty fond of. I like this one. The small hooks, you know, have a better chance of catching something. So if I need to, I can make that into a hook. But this one I kind of like, because this one's going to have, if I cut these barbs off, it'll give something for my knot to suck up against, or, you know, to make sure it doesn't slip off the end. These other ones, I'm going to have to notch here, do something, you know, make a decent sized knot, or make a decent knot. Whereas this one, a lot of my work is done for me. Okay. Alright, I think that'll work. Now, the knot that I'm going to use is a fishing knot that I use quite often. I think it's kind of a hybrid. I think that when I was a kid I learned how to tie the knot, and I think I learned how to tie it incorrectly, but it's always worked for me. I've used it for years and years, and it's worked for me just fine. Okay, so I need to give myself plenty of cordage here to work with. I'm not worried about losing an inch or two, you know, I just want to make sure that my knot's good. So I looped it around the stem of this thing, and now I'm just going to twist it. Okay, I'm not real scientific about this. I'm going to twist it and be careful I don't poke myself, which I just did. It's a sharp little thing. Alright, I'm going to twist it maybe 5 or 6 times, something like that. Okay, now I'm going to try to thread that up through the loop. Okay, and then back through that loop. Okay, so here's the finished hook. Okay, that other fishing kit that we just made, I consider that more of an active fishing. So I'm going to tie that, I'm going to get a pretty good sized sapling, tie that string to the end of the sapling, and that's going to be my fishing pole. This is going to be, the gorge hook thing, I'm going to just let it set up in a, just by itself. I'm just going to, I can't remember what they call that, a trot line or something. Basically, it's just going to be a line in the water that the fish can come up, grab a hold of it, and I want plenty of slack in my line, because with the gorge hook, the fish needs to swallow it, and then it turns sideways in their stomach or their throat or whatever. So I need them to really swallow it, so I need a ton of line. So if it goes in there and nibbles on it, and then, you know, there's no resistance or anything on there. So I may even tie on another one of those strands onto that 8-foot long other section. Well, basically this should be about 16 foot long, because I've got 2 strands now tied together, but I may do even one more strand. But anyway, so I'm going to take this piece of oak, I'm just going to start whittling it down. So that's what we got so far. I'll try to sharpen this up a little bit. Okay, after I sharpen it up, I'm going to make a little divot in the middle here so that my string has a place to go. And actually, it's going to be slightly off center, because that's what they tell me works best, to try to turn it sideways in the fish's gut. Okay, here it is. Okay. Okay, I'm going to search under this rotten log or whatever for some bait. Okay, well, it took me a couple minutes, but I was able to find a couple little worms here. One of them, I think I cut down a digging stick. One of them I think I chopped in half and must not have seen where the other part went. But anyway, this will get me started. Okay, a slight modification I made to the hook. I put a bunch of color on it. I know white is a good jig color for me, so let's see what happens here. Okay guys, I'm about done. I haven't gotten, I don't think, any bites, anything. Even the locals don't come down to the river this time of year. Well, I guess you can consider me a local. I live just up the road or whatever. Nobody comes to the river when it's this high. I've tried before, even with modern tackle, the fish just aren't biting. There's just too much food and stuff in the water. They're just not interested. But a couple of things I would change about my approach. First of all, this hook thing with this pole, that's fine and everything. It's nice, kind of like a crappie rod, where you can a long cane pole where you can get it into some holes or whatever, where you know, or where you want to get to and stuff. You got a lot of control over it. But I think if it were me, I would concentrate more on these gorge hooks, because they're more of a set it and forget it type of deal. And I would, like I said before, I would have made my gorge hook a little smaller, thinner diameter, and I would spend more time looking for bait. I found those little baby worms probably in about 5 to 10 minutes worth of looking. So I mean, there's a lot of worms out right now. Just the ground's so wet and everything, and I think that's what I would concentrate on. I'd probably have as many of those as I had cordage left, and make some of those. Now, as far as the knot to tie the rock to the string, with bank line it's a little easier because you can separate the strands, and then I actually used some pine pitch glue and seated the rock in there. I wanted to, for everything that I'm going to do with this series or whatever, I'm going to try to do it where it's, and we joke with Justin that it's Kansas resources. You've got no birch and you've got no pine. Okay, pine is awesome glue, birch is awesome fire starter. We're not going to use any of that stuff. So with the white nylon cordage, I did try to separate the strand a little bit and put a rock inside of there. And I actually took the sheath of the paracord, and because that can kind of act like a glue, you can melt that and kind of seat that in there a little bit. But the problem with that is that nylon stuff is so thin when you separate it that it broke very easily, and even the melted sheath part melted that white inner strand, so you couldn't use it. And that stuff is okay, but it's real brittle and it pops off your rock real easy. So like if you tie your knot and then just kind of drip it and try to mold that, and just kind of try to make it a secure bond, it'll either burn through your nylon, your white cord, or it will just come off pretty easy. So and there's another knot that I should have taken a little more time to tie. It's kind of like a sliding prusik, okay? I learned it primarily to use on my tent stakes and stuff, but that's a good knot. It would have sucked up to the rock and not came loose like just the granny knot or the overhand knot or whatever. But put 4 or 5 rocks in your pocket and it seemed to work okay. I'm not real concerned about the rocks staying there. The first couple times they kind of came loose and stuff, but then I found a little better rock and worked on it. Something that's not so smooth. So anyway, I'm not catching anything. Not gonna catch anything probably. So I'm gonna head her home. One thing that I could have used this setup for, in addition to fish like this, would be frogs. Walking through here, I heard those frogs like crazy. I'll try it maybe a little later on in the year when they're coming out a little bit more and when it's a little warmer, when they're a little bigger and worth it. I might try this setup with the thorn hooks and stuff, so to catch some frogs. So anyway, I hope you guys like this video. Hopefully it's not too awful long, and I hope you guys enjoy this series. Take care.